Our daughter graduated from high school. Falling into a chair in front of the TV, my husband sighed and said, "I can imagine how much she has ahead of her: college life, another graduation, a job, a family. All those joys that for me are now distant memories from my youth." Our Lisa grew into a charming, lively girl with a wide circle of friends. She always lit up the room with her infectious laughter and inexhaustible energy. Tonight, she and her friends planned to go to a club to celebrate one last night together before their paths inevitably parted. At 9 p.m., Jake, her childhood friend, came to pick her up. They had grown up together, and trusting his reliability, I let her go. My husband went to bed, as usual, and I was alone. The house was quiet, the refrigerator humming softly, and the floorboards creaking occasionally. My thoughts returned to memories of Lisa's milestones, her first steps, the first day of school, and all the vacations where we laughed until our sides hurt. Time had flown by, and now she was a young woman who was about to embark on her own journey. I didn't notice how quickly the bottle of wine was empty and how much I let my thoughts carry me away. I glanced at myself in the mirror and smiled, admiring the glow of my tan. It emphasized the curves of my body, which my husband had long since gotten used to and now hardly noticed. There was a time when his eyes lit up at the sight of me, but those days seemed like a distant echo. Refreshed but slightly tipsy, I felt light despite the fog in my head. Suddenly the silence was broken by the barking of dogs outside. It startled me out of my reverie. Throwing a silk robe over my wet naked body, I went out into the courtyard to meet Lisa. The air was cool, with a light scent of jasmine. I had never seen Lisa in such a state. "Mom, hi," she whispered, struggling to get the words out. Her usually bright eyes were glassy, and she was stumbling, trying to steady herself. She said she wanted to sleep. To my surprise, she wasn't alone. Jake had brought her back, and seemed to be in the same condition. His hair was disheveled, and his shirt was slightly wrinkled, as if the night had taken its toll on him too. I pretended not to notice his lingering, heated glances at me. After helping Lisa up onto the porch and sending her to bed, I turned to Jake. "Thanks for bringing her back," I said, trying to speak calmly. The look on my face expressed gratitude, but Jake's intentions were obvious. Words were the last thing on his mind. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on mine, and with a boldness that took my breath away, he reached for the waistband of my robe. The silk seemed weightless under his touch, and the air between us seemed to thicken. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, but the wine flowing through my veins made it hard to control myself. My heart was racing with trepidation and something I didn't dare name. The light in my husband's bedroom was still on, a reminder of the boundaries I was dangerously close to crossing. But Jake's presence was alluring, and the tension hung as if the night itself had conspired to bring us here. For a moment, everything around me seemed to freeze. The distant sounds of the neighbors, a passing car, a dog barking were faded into the background. It was just the two of us, standing in the dim light of the courtyard. His gaze was unwavering, and I couldn't look away. The warmth of the wine in my veins seemed to intensify, clouding my judgment and blurring the boundaries I'd sworn not to break. "Jake," I muttered, barely audible, but the sound seemed to break the spell. He hesitated, his hand freezing for a moment before he stepped back, a look of restraint flashing across his face. I exhaled, not even realizing I was holding my breath, but the moment passed, leaving behind an undeniable tension. The light in my husband's room stayed on, remaining a silent witness to what might have been. I pulled on my robe and forced myself to smile politely. "Good night, Jake," I said, this time in a firmer tone. He nodded, the expression on his face unreadable, then turned and walked off into the night. I stood still for a moment longer, blown by the cool air, before heading back into the house. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and subscribe for more exciting stories.